We have got a ton of info to go over today because Blizzard has got their content train on full steam ahead. Season 2 has just started and we already have the PTR for the next patch up. And boy is there a ton of information to talk about. We've got a 3rd Evoker Spec, a Mega Dungeon, 2 Spec Reworks, and Naxx is coming back. So we're going to be going over all of the bigger noteworthy things coming in this patch, but that's not all because I kind of want to talk about the huge implications about this new Evoker Spec, and kind of what that means for the game going in the future. So you guys will probably want to stick around for that because I think Blizzard is prepping us for some really cool ideas for later expansions. But before we get into all of this info, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell so that you guys are always notified when my next video drops. I'll be covering more newsworthy stuff around World of Warcraft, but rather than just reporting on the news, I'll do my best to give some insights into what particular news drops might mean, or just give my opinion on things. So with all that being said, let's begin. Alright, so the Season 2 train has just barely left the station, and we're already getting the PTR for the next patch. I'm sure all of you, including myself, know that, yeah, Blizzard's been putting out content at a pretty fast pace, but I don't think some of you fully understand just how fast they're putting stuff out. If you guys look at Shadowlands about this time when it actually released, we had only gotten the first patch, and here with Dragonflight, we're already into Season 2 with the 2nd raid already out. And then before that, Legion had been regarded as the best raid at which we had gotten content, with a new patch coming out pretty much every 77 days. So when you look at Dragonflight, from patch 0.2 to 0.5, it was 70 days. From patch 0.5 to 0.7, it was 56 days. And currently from patch 0.7 to patch 10.1, it's been 42 days. So with looking at that, Dragonflight's currently holding the fastest patch release cadence that the game has, and I could not be happier. It feels like we always have something new to do in the game, and there's something always right around the corner. But despite all that, it still really sucks because not everyone that played Shadowlands has come back to the game. I think Shadowlands basically broke a lot of people, or just turned everyone away from the game, and I think it's going to take, unfortunately, more than just one expansion for people to come back to the game. But getting back to content, there's going to be a mega dungeon coming in this new patch called Dawn of the Infinite, and I hope you guys like time travel because this mega dungeon is kind of themed around it. We're going to be fighting the Infinite Dragonflight in this 8-boss mythic-only dungeon. So from what we've seen so far, there's going to be some pretty heavy lore implications with this dungeon. We're going to be fighting a bunch of unique bosses, including Morchi, an evil version of Chromie, as well as Tyr, well, at least an infinite version of him. It also seems that Galakrond is going to be making an appearance in this dungeon, but we're not going to be actually fighting him. I'm guessing Blizzard's going to be saving him for a raid boss encounter, and my money is on him being the actual end boss for the expansion. And I personally love mega dungeons, and I think this one's going to be awesome. My only question here is, how are they going to be doing Season 3 for Mythic Plus? Because mega dungeons are typically broken up into 2 versions, so are they going to be adding both of them to the dungeon pool for Season 3? Or are they just going to add one and then add the other for Season 4? It looks like the rumors were actually true, and yeah, we're getting a 3rd Evoker Spec. So the Evoker Spec itself is called Augmentation. This is a DPS spec, but with a twist, as the main idea behind the spec is that you deal damage, but you're also buffing your allies, making them more powerful. So in theory, this is actually the first true support spec in the game. Augmentation uses the essence of the Black and Bronze Dragonflights to amplify the abilities of nearby allies. The playstyle is all about empowering your allies with a variety of beneficial effects. You'll be able to cast spells directly on your allies to buff them, or just let your spells smartly target people and not have to worry about it. To give you guys some ideas of how this is all going to play out, let's look at some of the abilities. And first up, let's look at their mastery, which is called Time Walker. Casting an Empower spell grants Shifting Sands to 2 allies, preferring damage dealers, increasing their versatility by 4% for 10 seconds. Ebon Might. Increase your 4 nearest allies' primary stat by 10% of your own and cause your eruption to deal 20% more damage for 10 seconds. Inferno's Blessing. Fire Breath grants Inferno's Blessing for 8 seconds to you and your allies affected by Ebon Might, giving their damaging abilities and spells a high chance to deal additional fire damage. Prescience. Granting an ally the Gift of Foresight, increasing their critical strike chance by 3%. Fate Mirror and occasionally copying their damage and healing spells by 15% power for 20 seconds. This affects the nearest ally within 25 yards, preferring damage dealers if you do not have an ally targeted. So as you can see, this spec is all about helping your party or raid members. Basically, if you want a spot in any group, this is probably going to be the spec to play. With Blizzard adding this spec into the game, it's telling me that they're testing the waters to see how players react to a spec like this. Because this is a massive change to the game, and I think if this test goes well, we're going to be seeing a lot more of stuff like this in the future. Personally, I think this is actually a test to see if a Bard class will actually do well in the game or not. I've been somebody that has wanted a Bard class in the game for a really long time, and with this new augmentation spec coming into the game, it's basically making the reality of a Bard class come into the game so much more plausible. And if you guys didn't think a new spec for the class was that big, there's also a data mine legendary coming to the game as well, for Evokers. So the stuff that we found on this, it's basically a fist weapon called Naxx the Unbound Legacy. And there's a unique equip on this, which reads, your empower spells activate the order magic within, releasing a Spear of Order that seeks a powerful ally, increasing their primary stat by 500 and speed by 600 for 10 seconds. So yeah, this screams Augmentation Evoker Legendary. It's also looking like Blizzard is giving us another reason to go back to Naxx. Much like they did with Zul'Gurub back in patch 0.7, they're adding some new content to this old raid. There's going to be some new achievements, mounts, toys, and other items. It seems like they're creating a way for us to go back and collect old items and recipes. One really cool thing that they're adding to the raid is actually adding grappling hooks to help you navigate around the raid a lot easier than having to run around the whole thing again. So if you guys want to collect some old things like recipes and stuff that you couldn't get back in the day, you're now going to have an opportunity to once again get them. With the new patch, it's looking like Blizzard is starting to work on adding Dragonriding to the rest of the old world. There are two spells that have popped up. One is called Flight Style Static, and the other is Flight Style Dynamic, which to me sounds like they're going to be making a lot of our older mounts have the ability to do Dragonriding. Or if you don't want to fly like that, you'll be able to just use the old version of flying. There have also been a ton of new races placed around a bunch of old zones in Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. So yes, Dragonriding is coming to the old zones. Holy Paladins will be happy to hear that their spec is getting some changes. Blizzard put out a post on the forums going over their plans for Holy, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be a massive rework like how Red got, but to me it feels like it's going to be more in the vein of the Shadow Priest rework. So in the post they go over what they want to accomplish with this change. The developers are making significant changes. Their goal is to provide more variety and choice to different talent builds for different types of content and encounters, and they're aiming to make unused talents more competitive and versatile, supporting multiple playstyles. They're changing the core rotational mechanics to slow down the use of abilities that generate resource but do not heal. They aim to reduce time spent on damage dealing abilities in favor of a steadier stream of healing. They also want to look at a better integration for certain abilities into your regular rotation, like Judgment and Shield of Righteousness, to make the gameplay feel more smoother. The developers are concerned about the high uptime and low use rate of Infusion of Light. They're considering changes to make it more valuable and impactful, and to ensure that it feels empowering when it procs. In the response to feedback that Holy Paladin Mastery feels too restrictive, they're reintroducing Beacon of the Lightbringer. This change is intended to allow for more strategic placement of the Beacon of Light, providing more freedom of movement on the battlefield. They're also addressing the issue of mana usage. The current system, which relies heavily on few abilities costing most of the mana, can feel punishing. They're considering adding methods for mana regeneration through active play or mana refunds in some situations. They're also contemplating adding a slight mana cost to Holy Power spenders and reduce the cost of generators to balance the mana expenditure. The team is working to better integrate Shield of the Righteousness and Judgment into the Holy Paladin playstyle. They're looking at more talents and redesigns to effectively contribute damage into multiple encounter types. The goal is to make it easier to decide when to use Shield of Righteousness for offensive contribution. And the developers are keen to hear player feedback, and they're going to be sharing more information on the PTR as it progresses. But Holy isn't the only spec getting some love, so let's talk about the mages. Developers are making some changes to the mage class tree, making it more user-friendly. They're making some abilities baseline, and removing things like Rune of Power, introducing a new tree layout, and adding 3 new capstone abilities. These changes aim to enhance the overall rotation for all mage specs. So Rune of Power is being removed, and with it, the power is being distributed back into all of the mage abilities that deal damage. This change is intended to reduce the restrictive nature of the ability and to allow more flexibility in gameplay. It should also free up space to amplify the mage's big cooldowns like Arcane Surge, Combustion, and Icy Veins. This new layout in the talent tree is going to be reducing the total number of capstones from 5 to 3. The aim here is to give more flexibility within the class tree, reduce the feeling of being focused to choose certain nodes like Shifting Power or Time Anomaly / Temporal Warp. So we're going to be having 3 new capstones, which are going to be offering a different variety of gameplay choices based on the content that you might be running. Ice Cold is a talent that modifies your ice block so that you're able to cast it while active, but you're no longer immune to damage, and instead take greatly reduced damage for a short duration. The other 2 talents are a choice node for Mass Invisibility and Mass Barrier, which is going to basically allow you to cast invisibility on all your nearby allies, or cast a specialization barrier on up to 3 nearby allies. They're aiming to give arcane mages a more consistent way to deal AoE damage without having to rely on specific abilities or timing. They're making adjustments to various talents, including Arcane Barrage and Clear Casting, and also updating the talent pathing to make utility talents more accessible. They'll be reworking the Orb Barrage capstone to provide more consistent AoE damage and steady the arcane charge generation. Additionally, a new talent, Concentrated Power, has been added, enhancing the arcane explosion in AoE heavy fights. And while not included in this update, they are making plans to change Fire and Frost for future PTR builds. For Fire, they're going to be aiming to introduce more variety into the talent tree and explore alternate AoE builds. For Frost, they're planning on enhancing the performance of underused talents and reassessing the role of Ice Lance in gameplay. Fire's one-build-fits-all talent tree has been seen as problematic by the developers because of its lack of variety, so they're going to be aiming to reduce Ignite's large proportions of damage in single target and AoE. They're also planning to make abilities like Flame Strike and Cauterize baseline. They're also going to be trying to focus on things that are lesser picked, like Ray of Frost and Glacial Spike, and they're going to be aiming to make Ice Lance more impactful and considering making talents like Blizzard and Cold Snap baseline. And finally, they want to improve the impact of Icy Veins. So overall, I think these Mage Changes are a step in the right direction. They're finally making some changes and addressing a lot of the issues that these different specs have, and just Mage in general. I think Arcane is just comically complex, and it doesn't need to be. Frost just feels really boring to play, and I feel like they really need to address the issue of proc munching and just kind of figure out a way to get rid of that, because it's just not fun. I'm really glad they're getting rid of Rune of Power, because I feel like that ability just sucks and you're just pretty much forced to use it because it was so good. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these changes play out with Mage, because yeah, Mage has been really needing some love lately. I don't know if you guys have been looking at the player numbers, but it feels like it's really hard to get a Mage to join your guild because people just really aren't playing Mage. It's only the really like diehard Mage mains that are playing it right now. And there are more changes in the PTR, but I just kind of wanted to go over these ones as I feel like they're the biggest or noteworthy ones to talk about. Either way, patch 10.1.5 is shaping up to be a really great patch, and I'm looking forward to playing it. And after all this Evoker news, I'm starting to really consider making it a new alt of mine, but we'll have to see. What I want to know is, what do you guys think about this next patch? Are you guys liking this new Evoker spec, or do you think it's going to be something bad for the game? Either way, let me know in the comments, and if you guys enjoyed this video or you got something out of it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you're new here. Thank you for all the support, and I'll see you guys next time.